There is a special series of events going on this semester at Western Michigan University. The Climate Emergency Spring into Action 2024 event is a semester-long look at the climate crisis and what can be done to address it. It includes talks and workshops and campaigns and other things going on. And joining us to talk a little bit about this topic is Dr. Paul Clements, professor of political science and member of the Climate Change Working Group. He's with us in the studio this morning on WKZO. Good to see you this morning. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Ken. Good to see you, too.
Well, tell us a little bit about this event that's going on in the semester at Western Michigan University, because there's an awful lot going on. Does it cover some specific aspects of climate change or all kinds of different topics?
Well, I'll tell you, Ken, we have more than 50 events planned from now through April. If you look at climatespringintooaction.org, you can get the complete lineup. But the students have figured out that they're getting a bum deal on climate change. And this is one of the biggest concerns of our students. So when the Climate Change Working Group opened up the opportunity for student groups, we've just seen an enormous response. So many groups are presenting movies and talks. We have a lot of international students. They're talking about how developing countries are being hurt more from climate change. Just a whole lineup, plus a number of sort of normal educational things, because basically still the overwhelming majority of people don't begin to understand how serious a problem this is.
And that's going to be a hurdle, I guess, to get over in addressing climate change, because people hear stories and they hear the numbers and they say, well, so the temperature went up a degree last month. And it's really sometimes hard for people to grasp just how serious this could be.
You know, we've had a presentation last week, Dave Carew, on how our sport fish are many of them are going to be dying out because of the warming of the Great Lakes, how so many of the bird species will no longer be here that people are used to, things like that. But I think the impact on West Michigan is going to be more from the global impact as places like Miami get flooded and New Orleans and perhaps New York City. But also, if we look internationally, United States, with 4% of the world's population, we've contributed 25% of the carbon pollution. And the result of that is that droughts and floods and these kind of things are hitting some of us, but they're hitting the hot countries around the world, the poor countries around the world. And that's where you're going to see, probably something in the area of 400 million climate migrants, people who just lose their homes, have to move away because of flooding, because of drought, just some kind of urban slum with just nothing. And that's going to be politically harmful. Plus, this is our pollution. And part of the problem is that in the international discussions on this, America, United States, and the advanced countries, we're not taking responsibility for the pollution we've caused for the rest of the world from our industrialization. So these are some big issues that our country is going to have to confront and that are going to be central to the lives of our students, as they move forward.
Dr. Paul Clements is with us, professor of political science, member of the Climate Change Working Group at Western Michigan University, which is presenting a semester-long series of events on climate change and on the climate crisis and inspiring the change, which is, you mentioned, is going to be something that'll really impact people's lives. It's some of the solutions are going to have to be drastic, aren't they?
We definitely have to get to basically zero carbon pollution here in the United States, and we should be getting there by 2045, and we're not on track for that yet. That's going to mean driving electric vehicles. It's going to mean heating your house with some kind of electricity, basically. And the technology is there. Actually, Scotland has already reduced their carbon pollution by more than half. And they've got a good plan to get it down to zero before 2045. They're on their way. And, the Scottish people are doing pretty well. They're not suffering from this. Mm-hmm. So it's a question of organizing it. But sadly, partly because of the Republican Party's climate science denial, our politics hasn't been able to move it forward the way Scotland did. And so we're not doing the things that we need to do as a country to get our carbon pollution down to zero. And we're going to have to move in that direction one way or another. The longer you leave it, the harder it gets.
Electric vehicles, as many have talked about, will play a big role in this, but how do we make that transition? Isn't getting rid of all these millions and millions of gas-powered vehicles going to be an environmental crisis in and of itself?
You know, you don't want to sell your car until it's had its proper lifetime. But when it's time to replace your car, then, get an electric vehicle. It's actually going to be cheaper for you in the long run. Actually, Michigan used to be behind the curve, but with Gretchen Whitmer and the Democratic majority, Michigan is now actually a leader in the United States in terms of transitioning to clean energy. So we'll have the infrastructure here in Michigan for electric vehicles. That's going to be here. But it's still, we've got to move forward. Individual choices are still quite significant.
Oh, that's just one aspect, the electric vehicles, of addressing climate change. What are some of the other major issues that will be addressed during this semester-long series of events?
I'm actually presenting tomorrow at noon. We have a whole series of Wednesday at the Lee Honors College. And so I'll be doing one of those on climate targets, truths, deceptions, and uncertainties. And that's going to be talking really at the global level about, we called it global warming for a reason. It doesn't matter where the carbon pollution comes from. So even when we get our carbon pollution down to zero, still if China and India and other places, if they don't do it, then then we'll still have worse global warming. We'll still suffer all those consequences. So it's got to be a global agreement. But for the global agreement, really, if the United States doesn't step up and say, look, we've caused a quarter of the problem, but the costs fall mostly on other countries. The migrants are mostly in other countries. And so if we don't take the step forward to support them to have a reasonable life, a decent life, when they lose their home to drought, they lose their home to flood, then I don't see how the other countries around the world will work with us to solve this really essentially global problem. So that's one of the things that I'm going to be talking about. But if you look through the semester, different events will focus on climate change affects every aspect of our life. We'll be talking about different species. There'll be nature walks about water, about different things you can do here in Michigan. We're going to end up with a rally because this is really political decisions that have to be made on the 17th of April. That's at the end of our program. But, it's just really an amazing lineup. There are a number of movies that are climate change related, showing different effects around the world. Again, the 50 different events spread throughout the whole semester you can check it out online, climatespringintooaction.org. It's all free, nothing you have to pay for. And it's not just for our students, it's also for the Kalamazoo and broader community.
And it's happening this semester at Western Michigan University. And Dr. Paul Clements, professor of political science and member of the Climate Change Working Group, has been our guest to fill us in on what's going on and what's being talked about and what needs to be resolved on this issue in the years to come. Thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate hearing more about this.
Thank you, Ken.